I have with me today a very special guest, Gaston Cornu Labat, who is a colleague of mine who resides at this moment in the US and is here in Belgium for a visit.
Now, the issue is about moving forward. It's about how do we lay out the solution? How do we lay out the path from here on? So, the going back to the focusing on the train wreck about the last 3 years and about activism. So much to the point of boredom has been said about them, about the bad guys, about the identification of the outside enemy, of the outside virus. But what has been said about the inside, about the enemy within, about each of us and our contributions to build up the social structure we see today. Doctor, because this is one thing that drove me crazy at the beginning in my practice. It's like the feeling that I would come to you and say, Doctor, here are the keys to my body.
Yes,
Here.
I recognize it very well.
Yes,
Yeah.
and
You just solved
please,
it.
please,
Yeah.
fix it and call me when it's ready, okay? Experience has shown us over and over and over that the moment we disempower ourselves and empower somebody else in regards to our issues, inevitably, not inevitably, but 99% of the time, that somebody else will take that power and use it to his or her own convenience.
I see so much on social media, whatever. We're always talking about, as you say, the bad guys and it's their fault and they're doing this wrong. But we rarely see our own role in growing this, garbage belt to which the rats are attracted.
That have no power at all except what we have given them. As Einstein very well said, we cannot resolve the problem with the same frame of mind that created it in the first place. That we have not realized one other old teaching from the mystics, from the ages, is the concept of change yourself to change the world. The one thing I can say is that it's very effective and it's real and it's new. It's brand new technology and we are working on the forefront of the advancement of medicine, which is frequency medicine, it's energy medicine.
So, hello everybody, my name is Hilde De Smet. I'm a Belgian doctor and I have with me today a very special guest, Gaston Cornu Labat, who is a colleague of mine who resides at this moment in the US and is here in Belgium for a visit. Hello Gaston, welcome.
Hilde, thank you for having me here. I'm very happy to be here.
So, as the public in Europe, or at least most of the people, don't know you yet, maybe you want to introduce yourself, tell a bit about your life story.
Sure. So, I'm a medical doctor. I was born and raised in Buenos Aires, Argentina. I graduated from the University of Buenos Aires in December of 1991, so over 30 years ago. I went to the US early on, 1994, to do my surgery training, education. I became a general surgeon and then I specialized in hepatobiliary and pancreatic surgery. That's surgery of the liver and the pancreas.
Pancreas, yes.
And I started my surgical practice, and over the years I shifted towards holistic and integrative medicine, which is what I practice today, aside from being an activist for health freedom. My focus today is what is called holistic and integrative medicine.
So why did you make this shift? I assume that as a surgeon you had a lot of status, you had a lot of influence on people, respect. What gave you the trigger to make this change?
Well, this is an interesting point because as a surgeon, so I was bringing forward or experiencing or manifesting gift that I have with my hands in terms of being able to take things apart and put them together. But really what moved me into doing medicine was the process of health and disease and the role we doctors have in helping people regain their health. So even though I was very good doing surgery and still very good, the process of growing, when you start really learning medicine, when you come out of medical school and you start experiencing, and what I found out as I started my experience as a medical doctor and as a surgeon was that what I had received in medical school compared to what I was seeing in real life was a piece of the pie. And what bothered me is that what had been sold to me in medical school was, okay, this is the whole pie of health and disease and the human experience.
Yeah.
And then I find out that in reality, what I had was not the whole pie, but just a piece of it.
So I think I can understand that you mean that conventional medicine, it's not that it's not good, but it's only a piece of the pie?
Exactly. And this is very important to clarify because I am a conventionally trained medical doctor. I do carry a lot of the tools that I learned throughout those years and that education that I acquired, and I find them useful. The problem that I found out that is still prevalent with the conventional medical system is not what it does, because what it does has some value. The problem is that need to be all that is, and to suppress anything that competes. The suppression, the effort to suppress, is something that it's an indicator of something out of balance. Because if you carry the truth, other versions of reality that may not be as truthful as yours don't bother you because you're carrying the truth. Now, if you feel the need to go after and suppress and make an effort that convince people that this is the only truth, well, there's something wrong in your message. There's something missing in your message. There's something that doesn't fully represent reality. And this is what's happening in conventional medicine, and it's been happening for the last 120 years or 110 years, since if we take the Flexner report and that movement from the American Medical Association and Rockefeller and all those dudes to start imposing a certain view, certain very limited view of the experience of being human, and the efforts they did not only to impose their view but to suppress every other version of reality, then we start to see a pattern that's problematic.
And this is the pattern that has been very clear during the last 3 years. So maybe we can talk a bit about the pandemic. We are almost 3 years for now, and it's very clear that every other view on what was happening was actively suppressed. It's been going on for over 100 years, or maybe even longer, who knows. But the last 3 years it became crystal clear that other opinions were not to be heard. So how do you see the situation now in the pandemic? Is COVID over? Can we leave everything behind us and move on, or how do you see it?
Well, that's a challenging question to answer because it's complex. And what is COVID? What is pandemic, right? So, my best understanding, COVID-19 is a syndrome. It is said to be caused by the SARS-CoV-2 virus that nobody has really isolated or identified or clearly put on the table and say, here it is. So the origin of this syndrome is doubtful. In the meantime, you also have many other elements that have come to the table. The fear campaign done by the media, which we know very well that is a cause for disease. We have electromagnetic fields that is very well established that they have a biological impact. I mean, there's no question scientifically that electromagnetic fields have a biological impact, many times detrimental. So that's another factor that has come into play.
Can I just say
Yes,
something
sure.
here? But we saw very clearly over the last 3 years that the business that flourished was the installation of 5G. In all the cities, everybody was in lockdown, but these companies could continue to.
These companies plus a few other mega, multinationals like Amazon and all those other essentials. But the point is that the push for 5G, despite the fact that no thorough public health impact of this technology has ever been done, even though there's scientific evidence that the impact of 5G can be very detrimental. This was, pushed aside, and preceding the official starting of the pandemic, the 5G was pushed into the world. The United States has been one of the first countries to implement that. There's anecdotal evidence that points out to the fact that electromagnetic frequencies play a role in this COVID-19 syndrome. There's a possibility that synthetic toxins are specifically released to explain patterns like what was seen originally in the Lombardy in Italy, in
Wuhan.
Madrid, in Wuhan to begin with, in New York City. These 3-4 cities that were key in the build-up of the perception of something very severe, right? So really the natural history of a naturally occurring virus doesn't fit, because the one thing we have seen over, the tremendously long history of pandemics in the human experience is that it shows up, it doesn't impact, and it winds down, and it's done. Natural immunity takes over, end of story. So yeah, sure, then we cry for all the bad things that happened during that peak, but it's the end of it. That's always been the natural history of an infectious, naturally emerging infectious agent that responds to certain perfect conditions that allow for a pandemic to come through. That didn't happen in this case.
Yeah.
It dragged on, and really there's so much evidence that this was all very carefully planned and orchestrated and executed.
So maybe we can leave
Yes.
leave this for our next interview, because today we wanted to focus on solutions, on a positive message.
Yes. And I agree with you because, everything that needed to be said
Has
about
been said.
the reality of what has happened over the last 2 years and what has been happening for the last 100 years and what has been happening for many, many generations. It has all been said.
Mm-hmm.
It has all come out to the light. If there is one significant thing about these last 3 years, is that something that was hidden has come out in the open.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't say anything further about that, because everything that needed to be said has been said, and whoever is ready to listen has listened already, and whoever is refusing to listen will continue to refuse. So there's no point in pounding and pounding and pounding. And this is the one thing that I have a big bone to pick with activism in general, because there has been a tremendous concentration on the train wreck and looking at what has happened and the lies and the and how the media is being bought and distorted and how the governments are. I mean, but this is as clear as water on a stream and in the mountains.
Yeah.
Very clear. And it's totally evident at this point. It's grossly evident. And again, those that are ready to see it have already seen it. And those that are refusing, that are not ready, it doesn't matter how much we repeat the message over and over, they won't see it. So, it's done. It's done. Now, the issue is about moving forward. It's about how do we lay out the solution? How do we lay out the path from here on?
I think that's a very important question for a lot of people, because we all can see what went wrong, what is going wrong still, but many people don't see how to, well, don't see this new future, this new world, let's say a better new world. So you talk about laying out the path. Do you have any opinions about this?
Yes. And let me pick on a phrase you just used. And it said that many are seeing what went wrong. I'm questioning that. Because what we're seeing, I think what most are recognizing, is the outcome or the emergent properties of what went wrong. And we are calling it what went wrong. But it's really not, it's like we're seeing the physical manifestations, we're seeing the manifestations of what went wrong, but we have not truly identified and addressed what has been wrong with humanity to this point.
Yeah.
And that's where I want to go.
So it's not about the corruption of the governments or the pharmaceutical industry. They're a consequence of something that was already wrong before.
Yes. So let's lay out basic principle that I think most of your audience will certainly grasp, which is a very familiar concept of the germ theory versus the terrain theory in disease.
Pasteur versus Bishop.
Yes. Bishop and Claude Bernard.
Yes.
Bernard was the MD, Bishop was the biochemist behind this.
Maybe explain a bit shortly for people who are not familiar with this.
Okay. So here's a basic layout of the health and disease process, and a divergence that happened in the mid-1800s that laid out two completely different views of the experience of health and disease. And on one hand, the most prevalent that has been kind of at the forefront over the last 150 years is Pasteur's view of the germ. The germ theory, in its very, very basic layout, states that we humans go through life and we encounter outside agents that are cause of disease. And if we have the bad luck of coming across a bad bug, we get really sick.
Yes.
And if we don't come across that, then we're okay, right? So really, the core layout of this germ theory is that we humans are passive observers of reality, and the outside circumstances are determinant of our health. This is the very core basic layout. On the other hand, Bechamp, who was the teacher, Pasteur was one of the disciples of Bechamp. Bechamp and his contemporaries, I'm assuming he was not the only one, they laid out the theory, what is known today as terrain theory. What does terrain theory mean? Well, actually, me as a human, as a being, I am not a passive observer of the conditions that my environment brings to me, but I am actually the master of those outside conditions through the optimization or lack of optimization of my terrain. So, my terrain, what is my terrain? My terrain is my vital energy, my nutrition, my emotional stability, my toxic load, or or lack of toxicity. So essentially, if my system, if me as a being, I am in top optimized function, everything about me, my biology is functioning top notch. I mean, the circumstances are outside with which I come across and I interact are almost irrelevant.
Yes. So that's the
right, and the other side is, if I am weak, then sure, the outside circumstances have tremendous pertinence in my state of health or disease.
Yeah. So that's actually the basis of natural or holistic or integrative medicine.
I would say so.
Or should be. But it's also the remedy for the fear that people experience, because if you feel that there's an enemy from the outside that can always attack you, if you feel empowered, that you can take charge of your own health.
So yes, and on this I want to make a comment that may actually, in a very favorable way, piss off people.
All right.
And it's this. Look how convenient for an industry such as the budding pharmaceutical industry from the late 1800s. Pharmaceutical industry it's a spin-off from the petrochemical, right? Because they realized with the complex biochemistry of oil, they could synthesize pretty much anything. So they found it very convenient to. So when we look at the human being from the germ theory perspective as a passive observer of the outside circumstances, and disease is an outside entity that comes in and messes us up, well, solutions also come from the outside. So here I am, the passive observer, totally vulnerable to my circumstances and totally vulnerable to the solutions that the system gives me. So it really fits very well the business model of the pharmaceutical industry.
Yes.
So that really, I don't know if your audience will, some will, it really pisses me off. Because this is a manipulation of the interpretation of reality just to fit a drive, in this case, a business drive.
So now, Gaston, we are talking about medicine, this concept of the terrain. Can you also apply it in different ways, other problems that have come to the fore especially during the last few years?
Yes. Okay. And here is where we need to stop with the BS. And I'm going to be I don't mean to sound rude, but I mean to sound very emphatic. Because if we understood the core concept of terrain theory versus germ theory, and we think of reality, of the cosmos, and some of the old cliches, if we want to call them that, how such as within so without, as below so above, or as above so below, and this idea that everything is a system within a system within a system within a system. So we can very, very easily transplant this concept of the individual and his terrain to the social. And we look at the social as the consequence of the sum of each individual human interacting within a system, right? Within the social system. So society really, it's something that is an emergent property or an emergence of the basic interaction between humans. Mm-hmm. So when we look at the absolute disaster of the current understanding of social structure, where we have governments that do nothing for the people, we have clear evidence of absolute manipulation with very, very detrimental outcomes for the public. So much lies, so much corruption, so much evidence that whoever gets to the top is there at the top just to benefit him or herself and doesn't give a piece of poop about anybody else. Mm-hmm. And will lie to whatever extent to get his or her way. What is all this nonsense? Where does it come from? It is the fault of those germs that came in? Or is it the terrain that is out of balance? Mm-hmm. Is it basic human interaction that's out of balance? So the going back to the focusing on the train wreck about the last 3 years and about activism. So much to the point of boredom has been said about them, about the bad guys, about the identification of the outside enemy, of the outside virus. But what has been said about the inside, about the enemy within, about each of us and our contributions to build up the social structure we see today? The social structure is not ever built from the top down. It's always from the bottom up. Every system in nature emerges from the interaction of the elements that conform that system. So that the power for the creation of the social structure, it's always at the base. It's never at the top.
And here in Europe, I could translate this in the fact that people were like too comfortable and not really engaging in the decisions made higher hand. It's that out of laziness or out of not willing to see or out of lack of participation in the whole, that this went out of hand, or how do you see where it went wrong at the basis? How do people need to change, or what do they need to do to change the system from bottom up?
Yeah, okay. So, and here we come to another huge issue, or huge question, or huge topic, or whatever the right term to group this discussion. Are we being fully empowered within ourselves, or are we out of convenience, out of carelessness, out of whatever motivators we
Ignorance
have,
also sometimes.
ignorance sometimes, are we disempowering ourselves and putting the dealing of the consequences of our actions in the hands of others? Because every time I look at somebody to address and resolve out of convenience or out of whatever the situations that I have generated through my actions, well, let's take a simple one. I have a legal issue, and instead of getting in detail into what the legal issue entails, I just very blindly empower somebody that calls him or herself as expert to resolve this for me. Mm-hmm. And what is the theoretical motivator of an expert is the well-being of his or her client, right, and the best outcome. But is that what reality shows us? Mm-hmm. And I would say it doesn't. And let's take an example of medicine. We started this with medicine. And what we have seen after 100 years of the conventional medical system is that the system is there, and the doctors that are part of the system are there to put the patient at the service of the system. Mm-hmm. And progressively, the system has not been at the service of the patient, but the other way around. So the natural tendency at the current level of human interaction is to seek one's own benefit at any cost. Mm-hmm. So doing that without full consideration of the impact of our actions on the others, it is the way in which basic human interaction functions today, which is we go about life self-centered, but self-centered without really taking into account everybody else around us. And that's the crux, that's the big mistake. Because we are not separated from every other being that's around us. And when I actually hurt others in my pursuit of my own benefit, I'm actually hurting myself. Mm-hmm. And that's the piece that's missing right now. Mm-hmm. It is, yeah, sure, I must be self-centered. I must seek my own benefit, but I have to do it. If I'm truly after my own benefit, I have to do it in full consideration of the other.
So we have two big things. On the one hand, the fact that our actions should not only be self-centered, but should take into consideration the effects on others, as it will come back to us.
Yeah, and allow me to rephrase that. They should be self-centered, and they should be self-centered with the full understanding that my own benefit, which is my goal as an individual, has to be truly my benefit, has to take into full account the others.
Yes. Yeah.
So I have to be self-centered, but I have to be self-centered in truth, which necessitates the full consideration of the impact of my actions on others. Mm-hmm.
So that's a very, very important thing, maybe
yes.
the essence of it all. Mm. But before, you were also talking about not taking responsibility and just ask an expert. I would say that it's still okay to consult an expert, as this person has expertise in something, but you mean that you also have to do your own research and not blindly trust the other.
Yes. Yes.
Something like this.
So let's go back to the example of law. Okay, I can think of my sibling, my dad, 15, 20 years, 10 years, understanding the legal system, right?
So your father is a lawyer?
Yeah, my father is a lawyer. Two of my siblings are attorneys too. I always joke I'm the only white sheep in the family, right? Well, that's not completely true, but sure, they took a lot of years gaining an understanding and knowledge about a certain aspect of human interaction, right? So, would it be smart for me to assume that I can grasp that knowledge in a month to be able to address that? Well, no, it's not practical. I mean, I could, but it's not practical. You know, the reality is that there is benefit in the expertise acquired in a certain area by others, right? It's the way we use it. So we can use it in an empowering way, where I come to you and I acquire you, and you become available to me as a tool in my process.
Yes.
Right? So then you, and in the case you as a doctor, you are a tool in my path to gain my health.
Yes.
Now, different is if I say, well, let's forget the attorney, let's use the doctor. Doctor, because this is one thing that drove me crazy at the beginning in my practice. It's like the feeling that I would come to you and say, doctor, here are the keys to my body.
Yes,
Here.
I recognize it very well.
Yes,
yeah.
and
you just solved
please,
it.
please,
Yeah.
fix it and call me when it's ready. Okay.
Yes.
So
that's
what?
The attitude
That is the attitude, and that is the quintessential attitude of disempowerment. So when you have a humanity that functions mainly on those two aspects, because these two are kind of key to the core of the problematic of humanity today. One is, I am about my own benefit, but I forget to take into account that part of my own benefit, the definition, is to take into is to consider everybody else around me. So I forget about that part, and I'm all about my own benefit in a distorted, unreal way. And the other thing is, I am, out of convenience, out of fear, out of whatever motivates me, I continuously disempower myself in the dealing with the consequences of my actions. So if I had to point out the two aspects of human behavior that show up in everyday little things, not in big events once every 10 years or whatever. No. In the everyday life, in the way we deal with our spouses, with our kids, with our neighbors, with our transactions every time we go out in the street. Everywhere, those two elements.
Yeah.
And those two elements for me are core in redefining the basic interaction of humanity that will, once redefined, will allow the emergence of a completely different social structure.
And we can apply it to everything. I mean, we can complain about the food industry and that everything is bad and processed and whatever, but we can also start growing our own vegetables, cooking ourselves, going to natural products, which is actually happening already here and there,
Yes.
that people are starting to become more self-reliant. We can do it with energy, we can do it with the legal system. I guess on every aspect of reality,
yes.
People can find ways to take more responsibility themselves, not disempower themselves by giving the authority to another.
And what is the issue with that? Experience has shown us over and over and over that the moment we disempower ourselves and empower somebody else in regards to our issues, not inevitably, but 99% of the time, that somebody else will take that power and use it to his or her own convenience, and not to the stated intent of solving our issue. So we end up being used by the other, and the beginning of the use by the other is not the ill intent or maliciousness of the other. That's a stupid byproduct of the process. The core, the beginning, is our disempowerment, our refusal to be fully responsible for the consequences of our actions. That's the core. That's the origin. That's the beginning. The rest, it's all stuff that comes out as a consequence of this very first step.
So Gaston, if you want to give to the public some keynotes, maybe some concrete advice. If people watch this video and you want them to remember the essence of it, what would you say to the public that is essential to change, the terrain that we have grown for hundreds of years? Maybe?
Yes. Okay. All right. So there's a very, very simple step to start with this. Very simple. Acknowledge. Acknowledge that the issue is not in the other. It's within.
Yeah, and
start there.
I think that's really important, because I see so much on social media, whatever. We're always talking about, as you say, the bad guys, and it's their fault, and they're doing this wrong. But we rarely see our own role in growing this, garbage belt to which the rats are attracted, right?
Yes. Yes.
So acknowledge it.
Yes, and let me add something more to this very important thing you pointed out, just to reinforce the concept. There's a lot has been said about the elites and the very powerful, very rich group of people that are about. And I tell you, they are nothing. They are powerless. They are insignificant, opportunistic parasites that have no power at all except what we have given them. So I think that reinforces clearly the concept. And as a second step, it's let's stop giving them power.
Yes. So how do we do this?
Okay. Once we truly step into this place of acknowledgement, into this place of saying, okay, the issue is not outside of me. The reality is not about us and them. It is about me, how I decide to engage with reality. I don't know how I'm going to fix this, but it doesn't matter that I don't know. I have to start by acknowledging that this is the core of the issue. Because from that place of acknowledgement, and this is the beauty of life, of reality, it's only when I am in that place of genuine acknowledgement that I don't know, but I recognize that here is the core of the problem. That's when answers start showing up.
Yes.
Because, the answers have always been out there, broadcasted to ad nauseum, okay? The problem is we're not listening.
Yes, and we always think inside of the same box. As long as we cannot change our point of view, we will never be open to other answers.
Exactly. As Einstein very well said, we cannot resolve the problem with the same frame of mind that created it in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And adding the other very significant quote from him that I found very useful is what the definition of insanity is: doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome. Which is, when we look at the history of humanity over the last 1,000 years, or 200, 300, 400 years, this is what's been happening. We've been doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting different results. Instead of getting different results, actually history has shown clearly that things are getting worse. And then what moved people into revolution, every revolution has led to a situation that's worse than the one before. So really, we have not been able to grow out of this in the pattern we have been engaging, in the way in which we have been engaging reality to this point. Mm-hmm. And to the best of my understanding, the reason is that we have not realized one other old teaching from the mystics, from the ages, is the concept of change yourself to change the world. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That is an absolute truth. However, we're clueless about it. And not only we're clueless about it, which is the most important part of this, we disown it as a truth. We invalidate it as a truth. And it is an absolute truth. Change yourself to change the world.
Yes, and people can do this in very small measures. It's, as you say, in daily life, how you interact with your family, with your neighbor, with yourself, what you eat, how you speak. Do you speak your truth, or do you hide yourself? Are you in the right job? I also feel it's very important that people find the right spot in their life, the right circumstances. So it's not that everybody needs to change the whole world, right? Mm-hmm. They just have to change themselves and be authentic in the way they express and so on.
Exactly, and this is brilliant what you're pointing out, important, very important, Hilde, because it's not about the big events, it's about the little events, which are the ones that build the big events. Mm-hmm. And this is the reality, and this is the whole dimension of our power. Our power is so humongous that with our little daily events, we can change the world. It's not that we have to go and climb the Eiffel Tower and shoot some death ray to all the bad guys. No. We have to be very aware of every little thing every day in the here and now, and that's all we need to do. So and this is we're opening a door, right, to a humongous perception of reality that can have us visiting for the next 3 months, and still we're not going to cover the whole thing. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But right now it's not important. What is beyond that door, this humongous new perception of humanity, is not important. Right now, the fundamental, most important aspect of this is that we acknowledge that there is a door and we dare to open it. Mm-hmm. That's all we need to do right now. That's all.
By acknowledging that you have to find this door from inside and not point the attention too much
yes,
on the world around us.
Yes, in practicality is like, let's stop pointing fingers and let's start looking into what have I done to contribute to the creation of this reality that's being manifested. Mm-hmm. That's all we need to do right now.
I think that's a very powerful message for people to take home.
Tremendous. And that, if we start right there, if we genuinely start with that step, this is game over. It's done. All this nonsense we've been dealing with to this point, it's done. That powerful, that simple, and that powerful.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Well,
So,
thank you for having me here.
maybe a last short thing. So next week you go back to Florida. Maybe you want to tell the public a little bit about the pilot project you're in at this moment. Also, to give, well, some new perspectives, some new hopes for the people. But on the other hand, again, and I also want to emphasize this, I see a lot circulating on social media about the medbed and the super technology that is coming. And again, I also feel like Gaston says that people sometimes don't take their own responsibility. They wait for the ultimate medical solution to solve all the issues instead of also, resolving our own teams. But anyway, still, it's a very special thing you are doing there, and a hopeful message for humanity. So maybe shortly you want to say something about it.
Yes, and I cannot go into too much detail on this, Hilde, right now because it's very early on. But what's happening in Florida, it's a very special group of people that I'm blessed to, thankful and honored to be part of. Are bringing together tools, technology, and knowledge that is extremely progressive and that is having a very significant impact in serious diseases such as autism. Autism is a true epidemic that is affecting humanity in a progressively worsening way, but it's because of its prevalence is growing. We have a shift of 1 order of magnitude in the prevalence of this disease that happened over 50 years.
So which numbers are we talking about?
Well, over the last 50 years, we have shifted from 1 child every 350 to today almost 1 child every 35, which is a humongous shift in the prevalence of a very serious disease, incapacitating disease such as autism, in a very, very short period of time. And there is this is unquestionably an environmental factor that is precipitating this manifestation, because it cannot be such dramatic change in a short period of time in species, for a species like human species. The 50 years is a blink of an eye. And you cannot have a tremendous shift as what we have seen over the last 50 years, unless humanity as a species is biologically responding to a very significant change in the environment. So I labeled this at a presentation in an autism conference a few months ago. I would consider this an extinction level event in the history of a species. To have such a dramatic shift in the incidence of such a tremendously debilitating disease such as autism. And there's very useful and effective tools to revert autism that we're currently working.
And this is new technology.
This is
not something that is available on the market.
It's not available on the market. It's still at a very early stage where all the aspects of the process are being optimized. And the one thing I can say is that it's very effective and it's real. and it's new. It's brand new technology, and we are working on the forefront of the advancement of medicine, which is frequency medicine. It's energy medicine. It's growing out of the grotesque, which is the biochemistry and the macrobiology.
Well, which also has a role.
Yes, it has a role, but
a piece of the pie, right?
Right. But we're growing out of it and we're getting into the subtle and tremendously much more cost effective. And that's the key. And cost effective is a very important concept biologically. Is what's the biological expense of a process to shift a physical manifestation, which is what disease is. And the more to the root of the problems you get with your technology and your methodology, the more cost effective you are. We have a huge oak tree, and there is all sorts of yellow and brown in the 3 million leaves that the huge oak tree has out. And well, we can spend a lot of resources going leaf through leaf, analyzing the yellows and the browns and the greens and the ratios and trying to fix each leaf. Or we can go to the root of the tree and realize that there's 3-4 things that were missing there, replace them and allow the natural intelligence of the tree to sort things out, and it will. So that's cost effectiveness, biological cost effectiveness.
Cost effective, but also, for example, autism as well as many other diseases at this moment are considered as, well, there's nothing to do about it. You just have to learn to live with it, do special programs and so on, a special way of treating the children. But it's, for me, it's the first time that I hear that there might be solutions to make those children more self-reliant and that they can take on more or less normal life. So that's a big thing.
Yes, and it, in a sense, this is not new, because there have been events where certain medical practitioners have cracked the issue and have brought technology or know-how that allowed the recovery. But what we've seen over the last 30 years is very significant and aggressive suppression from the system to those type of things coming forward. So the process here includes very carefully managing the known unexpected response from the establishment. Yes, this is coming forward. This is a very, very exciting project I'm working in, and looking forward to it.
So I'm sure in the future, near or further future, we will hear more about it. You will be able to reveal more, give practical information for people to go to Florida or to other centers that will be established throughout the world.
Yes.
So we look forward to that, and I wish you all the best and success with what you are doing. And well, I hope we can repeat this conversation, go a bit more into detail into other subjects. And well, thank you very much, Gaston.
Well, thank you, Hilde. It's been a pleasure, and definitely looking forward to continuing these conversations and being of service to finally change the world. It's about time.